Don't you just hate those bogus videos claiming Frank Fritz is dead? Excuse me? Well, I mean, you know what that's all about, don't you? Sure. They're just making these outrageous claims, trying to suck us in so they can get the views. But here's the information, the truthful information, up to date, as much as anybody can find out about Frank Fritz. And oh, by the way, Frank Fritz is not dead. So we all know it was back in July of 2022 that Frank had his stroke. His friend, someone found him on the living room floor, non-responsive, called 911, put him in the hospital. After he was in the hospital for a little while, his dad came out and made a public statement saying Frank is stabilized. That's about the same time Mike Wolf made his Instagram comment about what good friends they were. So then, you know, Frank finally got out of the hospital, and in September, he entered into rehab. Things were looking up. But in November, things were not going so good. I'm talking November 2022. November 17th, 2022, that's when Frank had another seizure. Well, not another. He had a seizure, and they put him back in the hospital for a short term. And in December, his caregiver, he's back home, his caregiver had to call 911 because his blood pressure just was going off the charts. Then in December, they had to put him back in the hospital because he had pneumonia. So he got out of the hospital and got it back into rehab and was doing pretty good. And, well, he got into rehab in March of 2022, and things were coming along pretty good for him. And then it was June when Kim and Mike Wolf kind of reunited and got together and talked about the old times and talked about the American Pickers. So since June, when Mike and Frank were having their little tete-a-tete together, there really hasn't been any solid information. It's just that, like Mike Wolf says, man, I'd love to get Frank back on the show. Frank says, yeah, maybe. But the health issues are paramount. And that's what Frank's focused on. And he doesn't want to make his life public right now. He'd like to keep things on the low QT. So that's all we know, other than we do know Frank is not dead. Will Frank ever come back to the American Pickers? Well, I think maybe, I'm not saying he's not welcome, but I don't know if his health will ever recover. I don't know if he's ever going to get out of the wheelchair. I mean, he could come back in a wheelchair. Hey, they make wheelchair vans. Who knows? But I don't think we'll see Frank in the foreseeable future. And the way the American Picker show is going without Frank, I don't know that the American Picker show will be on. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But hey, don't be fooled by these videos that say Frank Fritz is dead and Mike Wolf was crying at the funeral, because it's just a lie.